All right, welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Thursday, May 28th, 2020. Thank you for tuning in, and let's get right at it. Our solar wind speed's coming in at 290.0 kilometers per second, so relatively low solar wind speeds with a density of 9.8. Folks, we are looking at day 26 in a row without sunspots. That now makes it 117 days in 2020 without sunspots, 79% of the year. Last time we were pacing this kind of a spotless year, we ended up with around 85% of the year without sunspots, and that was back in 1913. So some interesting correlations to also show you guys here today as well. And also, we had a little bit of action today on our far side of the sun. And let's say that an active region, possibly a sunspot, is hiding just behind the sun's northeastern limb. Late yesterday, it exploded, producing a long duration B1 class solar flare on May 27th, 1839 UTC time. The blast site will rotate into view into about 2 days. If it is still flaring at the time, Earth could be affected. So we are now approximately about 48 hours away to see if we will have the effects, and I'll try to see if I can find some footage better of this CME. But interesting enough, this is the first time in a while that we've had to talk about Earth-facing CMEs in quite some time. Now, the location of the active region that is slinging that at us is part of solar cycle 25. It has a location anyway. We'll have to wait and see. Is this thing, or I'm sorry, it's this one up here in the far northeast section, not the southeast. That might be an active region as well. Yes, I know, Whalen's excited. But in the northeastern region, which would be right in here. Hang on a second. All right, sorry for that, folks, and thank you for being patient. Yeah, the dogs were going a little nuts, so we had to investigate. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we were talking about the northeastern section, which is over here. I know it's opposite when you're looking at it on the screen, but this is the region that they're talking about. The possible Earth-facing CME approximately within the next 2 days. So we'll continue to monitor that. KP indices sitting at a 1 with a 24-hour maximum 1. And on top of this solar wind, or the CME, we were expecting solar wind to increase as well. So shall we call today the quiet before the storm? Because our solar wind speeds are at 290 right now, even. I forgot to update the TCI, and actually it went up a little bit. It's at 2.98. But everything's kind of low. And then let's check out this solar flare, this B class that we received from this active region here. And we can clearly see it over at the grandsolarminimum.com in our space weather section. And you can clearly see the activity that has taken place over the past several hours right here. So you go from nothing, quiet for the longest time, and then boom. You talk about increase in activity, which is quite significant when you talk about how quiet it's been like this for a long, long time. So a sudden blurb here from the star, and we will have to continue to monitor. Now, the KP indices continue to stay around the low ranges between 0 and 2. We could be in for quite the storm in the next 2 days, 29th into the 30th, which we are expected increased solar wind speeds as well. Part of a coronal hole that was Earth facing now is turning away. But let's take a closer look here, and you could see the size of this thing here in the northeast. Let's go ahead and try to zoom in on that. Excuse me. So there it is. Definitely in the location belonging to solar cycle 25, and it's a doozy. That one could be a sunspot. That's a rather large one too. So if that is a sunspot, that would be quite a sunspot to break up a 26-day streak without sunspots. Now, this has not crossed the eastern limb, so it is not yet known or observed if there is any dark cores at this time. So it is not labeled a sunspot yet. However, it is getting ready to breach the eastern limb, and we will know within probably the next 24 hours if we are dealing with a first sunspot in almost 30 days. Or does this also be categorized as a proto-sunspot? Time will tell, folks. All right, let's get into a few headlines that we had picked out today for Grand Solar Minimum News. Some very interesting stuff out there. Some old news as well. From May 27th, hurricane force winds and heavy rains wreaked havoc across Yekaterinburg, Russia on Monday afternoon, May 25th, 2020. Numerous trees were down, many properties sustained extensive damages, roofs and portions of buildings were sent flying, and at least 3 people were killed. Strong winds downed many trees, with some crashing on vehicles and blocking roads. Power lines were also destroyed, disrupting power supply across the city. In one graphic footage, one man was literally blown into the air and knocked out as he tried to hold down a massive sheet of plastic from a roofed parking lot. According to media reports, the man sustained minor injuries while the plastic was eventually tackled. All right, I'll take a flyer. We got to see this. Disturbing footage, folks. Oh boy, wow. So yeah, he was knocked out, unconscious. Thankfully, he was able to get up. And man, that did not feel good. Wow. Another video shows strong gusts downing a mobile telecom mast, which crashed into the ground. A resident also captured the moment violent winds blew a balcony off a residential building, sending shards of glass and metal down. Good Lord. Several buildings sustained damage as pieces of metal roofing and other objects were torn off. In the town of Aramal, the roof of a two-story building was blown away and crashed into a parking lot, killing one person. And just tons of footage here at the original source of this article, which is Watchers.news. Again, thank you to Teo for bringing us weather, extreme weather, volcanic, anything that is extreme weather related. This is captured by this website, and we do appreciate their work, and that's why we really use so many of their articles, is they cover a wide range of the world, so to speak. And moving on, dam failure causing flooding, stranding homeowners in Lenroot, Wisconsin. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the 5th dam failure in the last 2 to 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. At least 5. When we first started covering this topic, the Orville Dam was the biggest headline as far as the dams failing. That was a big deal. And a lot of people didn't think that was going to be able to be saved, and it was, which was good news for everyone. But now we're seeing a year of so much rain, so much water saturation, that to see at least 5 dams, I believe 3 in Michigan, this one here in Wisconsin, I feel like there was one in North Carolina as well, maybe Virginia, so 5 or 6. However the case may be, record rains in the Midwest, record rains in the Southeast, record rains in Florida, record rains in Texas. I mean, half of the country right now is facing record level rain right now in most parts of the United States. I'd say at least 45%. The Northeast, it was heading that way. The weather lately in the Northeast has much cooperated, although we are expecting a system here soon. But I just thought this was interesting to report. Another story, another dam failure causing floods to cities around it. And these are starting to pick up in frequency. And with what I see that's coming here in the GFS, it doesn't look like much is going to change. And there's a lot to talk about this summer going into this winter. And there'll be some interesting things to watch for the next few months, for sure. Speaking of the flooding in Wisconsin, here we have the flooding in Florida. Guys, there's some pretty incredible totals coming out of Florida here. Persistent heavy rains over the weekend triggered severe flooding in parts of Florida, with a total of 7.3 inches of rain recorded in Miami in just over a 48-hour period on Monday, May 25th, 2020. Now, unfortunately, that was Memorial Day weekend, so that was not one way people were hoping to spend their holiday weekend. However, Sunday and Monday, dropping almost 8 inches of rain in just 2 days is quite the story. Another bout of intense downpours hit the city on Tuesday evening, May 26th, leaving the areas underwater. And some folks watching some of this footage, I was hearing people say that this is they haven't seen this kind of flooding since Irma, which was a Category 4 hurricane in 2017. In 2017, we had some major hurricane and flooding action during that hurricane season, and so much is intertwining with this right now too. But light rains began falling late Saturday afternoon on May 23rd, but became heavier by Sunday morning, May 24th. About 8 to 10 inches of rain fell across a wide swath over the weekend from Fort Lauderdale to the Upper Keys. Many areas were underwater as streets turned into lagoons due to rising floodwaters. Relentless downpours lasted through Monday, with a total of about 7 6.3 inches of rain recorded in over a 48-hour period in Miami. This was the city's heaviest two-day rainfall since 2012, greater than Hurricane Category 4 Hurricane Irma in 2017. Interesting. Lots of flooding. Again, tons of footage here on Watchers.news. Check this out. Up to 5.5 inches of rain fell in Miami International Airport in a 90-minute window. Let me repeat that. The Miami International Airport reported 5.5 inches of rain in a 90-minute window. Can you say cosmic radiation, cloud nucleation, highly charged particles? I mean, that's a lot of rain in 90 minutes. It's one thing to get a month's worth of rain in 24 hours. It's one thing to get 2 months worth of rain in 2 days. But one area picks up 5.5 inches of rain in just 90 minutes. The area has received 18.5 inches of rain for May, almost beating the record of 18.66. Which, hey, guys, we still got a few more days. Power disrupted more than 13,000 houses and businesses in Miami-Dade County. Global warming, check. No, that's not true. Sorry, it's false. And I'll show you why, too. Global warming doesn't do what is about to happen here in the U.S. in the next couple of days. We're also dealing with Bertha, which, by the way, I wanted to plug this website here, Mike's weather page, SpaghettiMottos.com, where we have a lot of our resources, weather related, that is linked back to this page. Very appreciative of a weather page that has so many features that so many of us can access to make it a little more easier to see and understand. But shout out, talking about Bertha, this guy's been all over it as far as accuracy and what's happening, and just wanted to plug his website. If you don't already know about it, Mike's weather page, SpaghettiModels.com. Definitely friendly and has helped us along the way as well as far as watching certain features like we're looking at right now. We got a low pressure system that is churning up some pretty intense activity in the Gulf right now, and we will keep our eyes on this. Possibly a reaction for atmospheric compression. And with these events, they're spontaneous. And when you have a high amount of highly charged particles in the atmosphere, well, this kind of stuff happens. And that's rather rapid. So, record rains in Florida. We've had dam failure in Wisconsin, dam failure in Michigan. Severe weather blows through southeast Texas. I mean, look at that. That is absolutely gorgeous. Matamis clouds, the perfect purple shade. Again, more evidence of a supercharged atmosphere. Check out the hail, and this is another thing that goes hand in hand with grand solar minimum and climate, is the hail, the frequency, how much we get, how much bigger it becomes. 2.5 inches, I believe that's baseball size hail. 1.5 is ping pong ball. 1.75, I believe, is golf ball size. And then we had winds reporting 80 miles an hour in Fredericksburg, Texas. Jackson, Mississippi, 72 mile an hour gust, but Texas, Galveston, Spring, and Harper all pulling in winds above 65 miles an hour as their high gusts. And here we have, with that low pressure that we just saw in that Mike's weather page, this right here, we have heavy rounds of rain. And because this system is spinning right now, so it's going to be dropping multiple rounds of rain. And just looking at what we just saw here, we could see that kind of development. You already see it actually happening on the back end. So we're going to keep an eye on eastern Texas, parts of Louisiana tonight for heavy flooding possible. And these guys are already below sea level. So definitely the one thing we're rooting for right now is obviously the sun to go down. But we have several hours left of daylight that could continue to energize this atmosphere here. So this will be something to watch. So record rains everywhere. Texas got pounded, and we're looking at more rain in the south today and tomorrow. The northeast will also get it around the rain. I'll go over that here just in a second. And then early next week, some much-needed rain in parts of the southwest. Not in the part, though, where we need it the most. Phoenix, Nevada, and Los Angeles. But a cooler pattern heading up there for next week. And look at this, guys. And this is what I was saying about global warming. False. The Northeast next week, early, cooler temperatures. And I can tell you this just from looking at my local forecast, we're going to be nearly 30 degrees cooler on Sunday than our high temperature on Friday, which is tomorrow. So in 48 hours, we will be nearly 30 degrees cooler than we were for our forecasted high on Friday in the Northeast. And cool and wet pattern also showing up in the Northwest, and that's not really leaving anytime soon. According to the GFS outlook, there's actually snow in the higher elevations that could happen in the Northwest. Now, the best thing about the cooler and wetter conditions in California right now, folks, is let's get rid of some of this drought before we get to fire season, because we've already seen California in and out of a couple of heat advisories, and it's going to feel much better next week in the Northwest and the West Coast. But let's hope that they can take advantage of this cooler, wetter pattern for a little bit, and it might help, just might help a little bit with fire season out on the West Coast. So in a way, you kind of root for this to stay like this for a little while, but you can only imagine what it's doing to vegetation, just, And, in the Northeast, the Northwest, this pattern is early next week, which will be the 1st of June, and I've got cooler weather report again in the middle of June. Yeah. So, not exactly a year without summer, but think about this. We've seen several volcanic eruptions in 2020 and 2019 that were 35,000 feet and higher. Is it possible that over the last year and a half that we're just seeing an accumulation of particles in our atmosphere that is now it takes that much action to kind of affect climate? Instead of Mount Tambora that blew 120,000 feet into the atmosphere, that'll change the climate real quick. Now, you talk about blocking out the sun. But right now, we're looking at some cool weather. Now, right now, feels like summer here in upstate New York. Upper 80s. It touched 90 degrees yesterday. I'm not sure if it did on Tuesday as well, but those were the two hottest days of the week, was Tuesday and Wednesday. But we will see much cooler temperatures here in the future. And I was reading across this article here, guys. I'll read a little bit of this. But 15 years ago, the most extreme Atlantic hurricane season on record began. And already we're in storm number 2 for the year. Bertha, not really a hurricane, but tropical storm, and it will impact Earth. I hope it impacts Earth. 2005 Atlantic hurricane season had the most named storms on record. The season lasted from June until early January of the following year. 6 of the 15 hurricanes that formed made a direct strike on the U.S. Now, if you guys remember, we have already seen the hurricane forecast upgraded. Okay, bear with me on this. The most extreme Atlantic hurricane season in satellite history began 15 years ago this June, when more than 24 storms wreaked havoc over 7 months in virtually every corner of the ocean basin. There were 28 storms. Now, look, 15 hurricanes formed. And 7 of those reached a Category 3. 213 days from the first day of the advisory that was first issued. That was a very long span there. A combined number of days with named storm in the Atlantic Basin during 2005 was 126.25 days. That broke the record in 1933. We had Hurricane Wilma in 2005. We also had Hurricane Katrina in 2005 as well, unfortunately. So where are we going with this, right? Look at this, $224 billion 15 years ago. Are we looking at an active season like this? Is this a warning? Is this a red flag? Read between the lines. I did a little digging. And if you look here, in the 2004-2005, we had a weak El Nino. Okay. We also had a weak El Nino in the 2005-2006 winter. So this is where the 2005 hurricane season followed. Now, you look down here, 2019-2020, weak El Nino. We are heading into La Nina conditions. When that happens, the wind shear is almost non-existent. And if there's no wind shear to help tear apart these hurricanes, it's a free-for-all. Pretty much. There's other factors that could tear apart a storm as well, but the main one is wind shear. So is it me, or is it right to say that in 2004-2005, weak El Nino contributed to a strong 2005 hurricane season, and will the 2019 weak El Nino contribute to the 2020 hurricane season? AccuWeather has already upgraded its forecast within a month after releasing it. We can show you over at we'll check out temperatures in the ocean here just a little bit, but you get my point. There is a correlation to be drawn here. And I can't tell you that sometimes this program gets too caught up in reporting and not enough talk about prep. But I would rather be ready than not be ready, especially with the potential, what the data is pointing to. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I am so far off right now that you guys can make fun of me by the fall. But if there is anything to the correlation between this right here, it could be a very active hurricane season for our Gulf and East Coast. On top of the fact that we're already dealing with so much rain that we've seen tons of dam failures. Now listen, that's infrastructure related, and we've talked about this over and over on our broadcast, that one of the things that the United States really needs to work on is their infrastructure, their drainage system, their dams, everything. Living in Buffalo, New York, I'm pretty sure the original 1876 pipeline everything is still intact and deteriorating. On top of the pandemic that the entire world is facing, everything that's been weird in 2020 has happened. And on top of that, we could be in for one of the most disastrous summers and winters in history of our weather as far as extreme climate goes. It's there. The probability is there. And I'm not raising this alarm to be a fear porn guy. I'm saying we better get ready. It's time to start practicing what we preach. And of one thing, I think a lot of people will agree that this COVID crisis has really given people a reason to rethink their prep list, to rethink what they want in a garden, because we're not really facing that. But in the beginning of this whole thing, I think some people were worried that, are we going to be able to go to grocery stores? There were people all over YouTube saying about food shortages and or they're going to run out of food and stuff like that. And the one thing that we haven't seen a crazy amount of food shortages. We have limitations. And I think the reason for the limitations served well because we're not talking about any real food shortages yet. In fact, we've had more people having to throw away food because the demand just wasn't there. So again, guys, I thought this was important. Weather Channel might have been throwing up a symbolic or a subliminal flag, but I had to go back and check the records in 2005. And sure enough, that busy hurricane season followed a weak El Nino, and which is what we just had, and we are heading into La Nina. We know that conditions are very favorable for that. So is it possible that history repeats itself? Now, it's not always true, but it's a good chance. And, I follow guys like Joe Bastardi, and he saw something in the MG8 thinking the Madden-Julian oscillation. He saw something there a couple of years ago, and it matched the exact same pattern that happened years back. So he called a very snowy weather pattern for several weeks in the month of January. This was a couple of years ago. It never came to fruition, and there were other factors that happened that threw that forecast off. So it wasn't really Joe's fault. So just because you find one correlation doesn't automatically guarantee that that's going to happen. It's going to be a repeat. But in this case, I'd like to say that I feel pretty good, considering that we've already seen AccuWeather increase their predictions for hurricanes. Plus, we know the lack of wind shear pretty much allows whatever will form. Now, the only thing that has to get its act together is temperature. Water temperature in the Gulf, still not really that warm yet, but getting warmer each time we look. More storm. Now, this part of the Pacific, East Pacific tropical system to bring a flood risk into Central America. And this system will cross over into the Gulf. And that's another reason why I wanted to bring this up. We'll be dealing with heavy rainfall, flash flooding, mudslides, rough seas. Depression may form late week. So if we have warmer temperatures, like in the Gulf, where we will see summer temperatures really stabilizing in the middle part of the country and in the south. From the Ohio Valley to the Northern Plains, all the way to Texas and Georgia, Florida, you're going to see warm temperatures. We're only talking about the West Coast and the Northeast that really won't see summer-like temperatures early next week. But continuing heat to continue to build, and that will also ripen the situation for these storms to form as well. Again, this is going to be a system that we will continue to watch as it could cross over onto the Gulf side, and we could have another system to be watching in the Gulf of Mexico. Crop reports. So I've been very proud of the amount of corn that has been planted this year. Very optimistic of the amount of everything planted this year. Everybody's up. This is great from last year. For instance, Indiana last year this time had 20% of their crop planted. They have 80%, and they're above 11% of their 5-year average. These are great success stories. And I don't want to take anything away from it. So before I say, I just want to make that clear. These are awesome starts for these states here. The amount of corn that's emerged is also outperforming a lot of 5-year averages. Again, that is something to be proud of. I mean, look at South Dakota. The percentage of corn that had emerged at this time last year was 1%. They're up 43% from 1 year over. Now, the condition of the corn. Again, look at all this. Beautiful shape. Very little percentages in poor and very poor condition. Everything is in good to fair condition. A very small percentage in excellent condition. But the majority of the crops, well, I'll give you a precise number, 83% of our crop conditions are fair or good as we currently speak. Soybeans are also doing good as well. Numbers are continuing to look impressive for 2020. Take a look at field work. And I think maybe these guys might watch. Who knows? Because they've actually fixed this for a change. I normally have to rotate this. Notice some of the areas that are starting to struggle for field work. They've got a great head start in planting and crops that have emerged. But we have Michigan, like I said, 3 dams have failed in that state alone with more rain to that area. Illinois and Indiana and Ohio, that's a decent amount of corn crop and soybean for sure. Iowa now at 2.5 days suitable in the fields. Thankfully, everything for the most part is planted. But for those who aren't completely done, now we are starting to see the results of heavy rains and flooding everywhere. Where am I going with this? We are having a great 2020 start, but we cannot celebrate yet, and we have to pray to the weather gods that we don't have to deal with crop loss because of flooding and hurricanes and the effects of storms that form around us. If we're dealing with all this flooding now, yes, crop is planted, some are emerged. What is that going to look like towards the fall? The record is 28 storms, 2005. Hopefully we don't rival 2005. Hopefully I am wrong about the correlation between the weak El Nino followed by an active hurricane season, one of records, which just happened to have a weak El Nino with a forecasted weak La Nina. So, good start so far. Let's hope it stays that way. But we're seeing some states that are struggling to do the field work necessary. Now, like I said, it's a good thing that these states are ahead in their plant. Otherwise, it would be a disaster. Again, they've had bad plants in 17, 18, and 19. Thank God 2020 wasn't the no plant that some of us thought we were going to say. I'm part of that crowd. I thought this was going to be worse than it was, and we got not so much as an overwhelming amount of snow, but an average amount of snow this winter, so we didn't have to deal with a lot of floods from late winter into spring, but the flooding has picked up a lot here in the last several weeks. All right, let's check out some weather real quick, shall we, before Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. I wonder if it's been out the whole time.
I think it just went out. Did you switch scenes?
I did. So anyway, sorry about that, but just showing what we're looking at here. This cold front moves out. This is Saturday. Again, Friday, Thursday and Friday definitely going to be active. Here we are once again for today. Lots of flash flooding possible in a couple of different areas. The South, the East Coast, the Great Lakes. Tomorrow, not as bad, but we still have that possibility. And the severe weather will be going through Pennsylvania and central New York, upstate New York. But this will die out overnight. So this is going to show up late in the upstate New York area. And we may just end up getting just rain showers out of this. But there will be potential for severe weather on the Northeast. And with that will bring a cold front. Now, let's check out the GFS. This is all that rain that we're talking about for today, tomorrow, and Saturday. Again, nothing crazy except if you live in Wisconsin and in Michigan. There's that low pressure system that also shows up on GFS, but GFS doesn't think that's going to really develop into anything. Moderate rain showers across the south into the northeast by Saturday. And then, unfortunately, Florida getting more rain, more heavy rain before the end of this month. So the Miami International Airport might break that record after all. They're only 0.16 inches away from beating it. Saturday, the low pressure is out of the northeast. High pressure falls behind that, bringing in cooler air, dry to the plain states, across the Ohio Valley, into the northeast for Monday, June 1st. But like I said, cooler temperatures. High pressure dominates all the way through Tuesday, June 2nd, and then we start to see some rain in the upper Great Lakes into the northeast by Wednesday next week of June 3rd. Temperatures start to warm up again, and with the warmer temperatures brings more rain to the central plain states, to the Midwest, onto the mid-Atlantic states as well. High pressure once again dominating across the Great Lakes and northeast, keeping that moisture south and then the Ohio and Tennessee valleys as well. And just watching this weather, this is where you really can't count on this forecast to be accurate. So when I show these, I want people to see it as this is what in all likelihood could happen. But guess what? The GFS on June 7th is signaling snow showers in the northwest. BC and Alberta, heavy snow showers. Now, those are higher elevations, but still. It's June 7th, all right? On top of that, high pressure driving the weather here in the middle Atlantic. That is normal for this time of year, which is going to bring a steady flow of moderate rain showers from the south to the northeast starting around the 8th of June. Nighttime may die out. This energy of the sun kind of brings it back. Can't rule out severe weather. And then another cold front, another high pressure system pushing out this active weather off to the East Coast and perhaps bringing another round of cooler air. Now, down at the bottom here, this could be the remnants of that tropical issue that we were talking about in the Central America region. Right now, this thing is trekking towards the Keys and Miami. So not a good way to start the month of June for Miami for sure. Temperatures, let's take a look at them. This is tomorrow's daytime highs. This looks pretty good. This is where we should be for this time of year. So enjoy it. This is actually today's. And then here we have Friday's daytime temperatures. Not bad, but you start to see that cooler air moving in across the northern plain states, into the Great Lakes, across the Ohio Valley overnight. Temperatures drop in the 40s. Not too bad. May 30th, 65 degrees near Cleveland. Erie, PA could see highs only reaching 59 degrees. And then a stretch across South Dakota and northeast Nebraska and western Iowa, we'll see the temperatures in the mid-50s for daytime highs. Wow. That cold air, you can see it dipping all the way far south into Tennessee. Let me tell you, folks, 70 degrees at the border of Tennessee and Kentucky on May 31st is extremely cool for these folks. This is like a 50-degree weather for someone who lives in Dayton, Ohio. say for instance. That's what it feels like to them. 60s, upper 60s, low 70s. These cooler temperatures hang around into the 1st of June, and then we start to warm back up across the Central Plains, into the Northern Plains, throughout the South, and eventually the Midwest, into the Ohio Valley. But really, the Northeast just kind of stays 60s and 70s. We get some 80s again for June 7th. That's a Sunday. So the majority of the country heating back up. Hello, summer. But then another high-pressure system behind it, pushing that heat. Look at that, guys. That low-pressure system. We've got 80s and 90s across the East Coast, all the way up into New York City. Could be looking at 90-degree temperatures on Tuesday, June 9th. And this high-pressure system, this cold air, is that powerful where it squeezes that into the ocean. And there's going to be a pocket of temperatures that are going to be even highs in the 60s, the middle of the country, by June 13th. So already some unpredictable weather, a roller coaster. You know, this is textbook grand solar minimum climate. The roller coaster. Summer, then spring. Summer, then fall, then spring, then summer. That's what it feels like. Not a lot of snow to talk about, but we do have snow in the Northwest, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington in the upper levels. So, going to be an interesting summer, folks. We've got hurricanes to watch. We've got space weather, the CME that's coming at us. Hopefully not that big of a deal, but the days that it's supposed to arrive on the 28th through the 30th, we also are expecting increased solar wind speeds, so we could see a huge jolt to our magnetic field. And with KP indices as low as they are right now, if they continue to stay that way, folks, we could see a big earthquake within the next 48 to 82 hours, depending on what is going to happen. And when I say big, I mean 7.6 or higher. So we'll keep our eyes open, keep it peeled. And Mari, did you want to say anything before we head off the air today?
Sure do.
It was an interesting beginning, so we apologize to those of you who stuck around for the whole thing.
And sorry about the little break in the beginning. I'd like to say hello to everyone in the chat. Welcome to our newest paid member on YouTube, Ashley. Thank you very much for supporting
Thank
our
you.
channel. Very cool. And also a big thank you to the people who have gone onto our Teespring site and purchased t-shirts and stickers and mugs and stuff recently. It's been sort of dead, and just recently, I guess the summertime, people are in the mood to have new t-shirts and stuff. So
Sure.
we got them. Thank you for supporting our channel. I'm working on editing a talk that we did with Jesse about gardening and some solutions with, I think you were talking about canning and stuff.
Yep.
So
Seeds.
I
Basic
should have it up.
101 stuff.
If I don't have it up tonight, I should have it up tomorrow, I'd say. Probably in the morning. And then I believe we're planning a call-in show for our paid members tomorrow night. You can place the time, Jake.
Well, if we do a call-in show, it's always been 9.
You want to do a 9 o'clock?
Yeah, we'll do a 9.
So we'll do a 9 o'clock call-in show.
Sounds good to me.
And then I'll be doing the weird news again after a 2-week hiatus on Saturday on our other sister channel, WTS Guy.
Well, things are weird for sure. We live in some interesting times.
All right, that's all
That's
I
all
got,
you had?
Jake.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, we live
That's
in
all I got.
interesting times. Before we went on the internet, watching the news is incredibly stressful. So maybe we should watch less of the news. But with the protests, the virus, the unemployment, and on top of that, we're in the beginning of a grand solar minimum, and people have no idea what's going to smack them here soon. Unfortunately, things are starting to rev up big time for the month of June, looking pretty rocky, especially here this summer, heading into the fall and into next winter. So All right, guys, thank you for tuning in once again to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. We'll see you guys tomorrow night for the call-in show for the paid members. How do you get the phone number? Join our Patreon channel or become a member here at YouTube. If you're on your PC or laptop, just go over to our website, or I'm sorry, our YouTube channel, Grand Solar Minimum channel. Click on the Join Membership button and just walk through the steps. It doesn't matter what level member you are, you will get access to all call-in shows. You'll get the phone numbers. So that is part of the paid perks of becoming a member, a paid member of our channel. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and stay safe out there. We will talk soon. Take care, guys.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform, buy a t-shirt, or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.